Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Sheikh Nawaf Al-Sabah, Prime Minister of the State of Kuwait. I request protocol to escort His Highness.
J'ai le plaisir de souhaiter la bienvenue.
I have great pleasure in welcoming His Highness Sheikh Al-Ahmad, Prime Minister of the State of Kuwait, and I invite him to address the Assembly.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي رئيس الجمعية.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, distinguished President of the General Assembly, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, Highnesses, distinguished heads of delegation, distinguished participants, may the peace and blessings of God be upon you. Mr. President, at the outset, the State of Kuwait would like to convey its most sincere condolences to the brother kingdom of Morocco with regard to the victims of the earthquake that killed thousands. I also would like to express our condolences to our brothers and sisters in Libya with regard to the storms and flooding that have affected it and that have also caused many casualties. We pray to the all-powerful God to take mercy upon the victims and to alleviate the suffering of families. And we wish a speedy recovery to all of the injured. It is a pleasure for me to congratulate you and your friendly country on your election, Mr. President, as President of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly. We are fully convinced that your rich experience in international affairs will allow you to wisely and skillfully guide our work. I also would like to pay tribute to the efforts of your predecessor, Mr. Chaba Koroshi, throughout his presidency of the preceding session. I also would like to express our appreciation for the constructive and immense efforts made by the Secretary General of this august organization, as well as his actions to realize the lofty mission of the UN based on its charter to maintain international peace and security. Mr. President, today, once again, I address the international community from this prestigious podium with regard to the challenges and obstacles that multilateralism is facing on the international arena. These are putting to the test our ability to survive and to move forward, or else we will face a stalemate. The development of the world today, as well as conflicts between states, WMD that are proliferating, terrorism, an escalating scourge that is exacerbating already high poverty, as well as the threats posed by climate change and natural disasters, the challenges of food insecurity, not to mention the new and emerging challenges and risks in the cybersphere, which create great risks for cybersecurity. All of these factors mean that we must seek international cooperation based on partnership and responsibility. And here we'd like to underscore the importance of the SG's initiative entitled Our Common Agenda, which has quite precisely diagnosed the situation the international community is facing, as well as the various challenges that require joint efforts to address them at various levels, regional, international, and national. And the goal is to make use of the tools the UN has, as well as its legacy, and to diversify its mechanisms and tools. Mr. President, the state of Kuwait, for 20 years now, has been convinced in and believes in the principles of good neighborliness, and it has always striven to assist Iraq to regain its footing through constant, tireless efforts to aid Iraq in returning to its rightful place on the international scene, so that Iraq can realize the hopes and aspirations of this brotherly people. However, we were surprised by the verdict of the Supreme Federal Court in brotherly Iraq, which ruled that the law on the ratification of the Maritime Navigation Organization of Hor Abdullah, an agreement concluded between Iraq and Kuwait in 2012, was unconstitutional. This agreement was ratified and submitted to the United Nations in 2013. This ruling contained several historic contradictions with regard to the state of Kuwait. We also were surprised by the Iraqi government's decision a few days ago concerning the Protocol of Security Exchange signed between the head of the Naval Forces of Kuwait and the Naval Forces of Iraq in 2008. The Iraqi government had decided to revoke that agreement, and this will have negative consequences for maritime security, as well as on navigation in the Hor Abdullah region. Here, the state of Kuwait believes that this agreement on maritime navigation in the region, as well as the Security Exchange Protocol, are still valid in light of their importance for navigation and for maritime safety and security. These agreements can help prevent chaos and accidents in the region. They can also protect us from trafficking in arms and narcotics, which are sources of revenue for terrorist and extremist groups. From this podium, which symbolizes multilateral diplomacy, we must maintain international peace and security, and Kuwait would like to confirm the importance of the Iraqi government taking tangible measures and decisive measures urgently to remedy the consequences of this ruling and its historic contradictions, in order to protect good neighborly relations And at the same time, we emphasize the importance of ensuring security, independence, and the territorial integrity of both countries, as well as compliance with the agreements concluded by the two states, as well as international relevant resolutions, especially Security Council Resolution 833, which form the basis for the delimitation of terrestrial and maritime borders. And we call on brotherly Iraq to show goodwill and to continue meetings of technical teams responsible for border delimitation beyond point 162, pursuant to international laws and conventions. And Kuwait reserves the right to undertake the requisite measures both legal and international measures to defend its legitimate and legal right pursuant to international resolutions and the norms of international law, which we have always complied with and applied in our relations with all states. Mr. President, 75 years. That is the duration of the suffering of the free Palestinian people, suffering caused by the failure of the international community to implement its own resolutions on international legitimacy. They suffer from Israeli occupation, which violates all international norms and conventions. And here we'd like to underscore the essential importance for the Arab Muslim world when it comes to the implementation of GA resolutions. My country has presented a hearing before the International Court of Justice. It had spoken with regard to the repercussions of Israeli occupation and its violation of the rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination. We had emphasized our constant opposition to this and our support for the rights of the Palestinian people based on international legitimacy and the Arab Peace Initiative until an independent Palestinian state is established with East Jerusalem as its capital within the 1967 borders. Sudan, brotherly country, is experiencing tragic events due to an armed conflict, and this is a source of real concern. We urge all parties involved to immediately end hostilities and to return to dialogue and to a peaceful political process to protect peace and security, as well as the territorial integrity of Sudan. And we confirm our support to all international initiatives in this regard, including the initiative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and of the U.S. With regard to our brotherly country, Yemen, we once again reiterate our support for the efforts of the UN through its special envoy of the SG to Yemen to resume the political process in order to arrive at a comprehensive solution based on three pillars: the Gulf Initiative and its executive mechanism, as well as the conclusion of the National Conference of National Dialogue and the relevant SC resolutions, especially Resolution 2216, in order to guarantee peace, stability, and the integrity of the Yemeni territory. When it comes to Syria, we confirm the importance of stepping up efforts to arrive at a political solution through Syrian-led efforts, while respecting the relevant SC resolutions, especially Resolution 2254. On the regional front, we must strengthen the good neighborly rule stipulated by the UN Charter. We would like to reiterate our appeal to Iran to take serious measures to rebuild trust and to launch a dialogue based on respect for states and non-interference in internal affairs, as well as maintaining the safety and freedom of international navigation. My country also would like to underscore that the ownership of natural resources in the region, in parallel with the zone between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, includes the Dora field, and this is a territory shared between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. These two countries alone have full rights to exploit these natural resources. Kuwait also categorically rejects any claim of the existence of any rights belonging to other parties in this field or in this region, this submerged region which runs parallel to the division between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, with its borders determined by Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. Mr. President, we hope to revive international dialogue based on a culture of peace and coexistence, as well as tolerance at all levels. But Muslims are still facing provocative and irresponsible attacks from certain extremists who have burned copies of the Holy Quran in many capitals of certain states under fictitious pretexts of freedom of expression. This requires international efforts to take strong measures to end hate speech and the associated media campaigns that target Muslims. Mr. President, the state of Kuwait, as part of its vision of development under the slogan, "A New Kuwait," is monitoring implementation of all indicators and international norms to turn Kuwait into a financial, commercial, and cultural hub that can effectively interact with the rest of the region and the rest of the world, so that these principles can be respected as part of its expanded cooperation plan based on initiatives drawn from our human and cultural heritage left to us by our founding fathers. When it comes to environmental protection, my country has made great strides in fulfilling its responsibilities and implementing its commitments, especially when it comes to the industrial sector and the transport sector, to diversify energy sources and to use renewable energy. We have also committed to ensuring carbon neutrality by 2050 in the oil sector. We're a member country of the Gulf Cooperation Council. We've always been pioneers in the international community based on our conviction of the importance of working together to address common challenges. We expect a successful COP28, which will take place in Dubai in the UAE. And we are counting on support from the international community to implement the various elements of the Paris Agreement. And we welcomed the statement by Saudi Arabia regarding the establishment of a global body for water, which would be based in Riyadh to ensure complementarity in the efforts of countries and organizations to manage water resources in an effective manner and to exploit them in an optimal way. I would also like to thank the state of Qatar, which will be hosting an exhibit on green climate and environmental efforts. We hope for the support of UN member states for our candidacy within the Human Rights Council for the period 2024 to 2026. During the elections that will take place in October. Through our candidacy, we will strive to fulfill the world's hopes for development and to build bridges to find comprehensive, just, equitable solutions to address human rights issues based on international law and international humanitarian law, as well as international human rights law and resolutions that are internationally recognized, without any selectivity or double standards, and without any politicization or desire to follow the policy of a fait accompli. We like to reaffirm our commitment to multilateralism and to international law, as well as the principles and goals of the UN Charter, in order to guarantee better governance in the world so that the UN can carry out its mission of maintaining international peace and security and benefit all humanity. May the peace of God be upon you.
Je tiens à remercier le Premier ministre de l'État du Koweït.
I should like to thank the Prime Minister of the State of Kuwait for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Highness.